Go live. Okay, so let's pop out chat. Ooh, not experienced enough camera. So you're going to experience buffering. Well, hopefully this is the last time you ever experience that particular issue. Hopefully, he says. He says hopefully. Because hopefully, if I put things together right, and if the cables that have arrived were the correct cables, and things which literally just arrived, hello everyone, then in a few minutes, I'll be commencing turning on the new computer. Or rather, yes, I will be able to turn on the new computer. Make sure that's currently set in off mode. I don't want anything coming on which I don't want on until I want it on. Yes, that's off. All confirmed. And that switch is off as well. Hello. So, hope you're all well. CD ready to go in the CD drive. Use the covers stay there. I say stay, not come out to play. Keyboard. Hello everyone, how are you all doing? I hope you're all well, and apologies for being late. As said, I literally had some cables arrive, and they were extension cables. Now, why did I have extension cables coming? Well, because when I measured this up, I measured it up for a full-sized power supply unit. My old modular one, in fact. This one. Oh, good lord. If I can get it out of the pile of boxes which currently have appeared. This is the trouble. When you're building a computer, you have to keep all the boxes just in case you have to send things back to the lovely people at Amazon. But it's rather annoying because they take up a lot of space. Or wherever it comes from. So, this is the old power supply unit which I've been planning on using. However, the cables for it, the new module cables for this, that plug into these slots, were 180 quid to run up with a new system. So, new power supply came. New power supply came, and I decided, right then, I want something a little smarter. I want to be clever, really. It's a MIDI tower. It's got enough space in it, but you know what? I'm going to be spacious, and I'm going to see if I can get something which is a little different to fit in there and work. And so, I got myself a small form. Yes, a small form. Power supply unit, which takes up less space. But the trouble is, the cables that came for that small form power supply unit don't go to full length. So, I had to get, and the bias one is that one, is always third across, isn't it? Bingo, in you go. So, let's see. Moment of fingers crossed, everyone, please. Well, lights have come on. Power has entered in that section. Should be working, he says, but nothing is making a noise. That is always the worrying thing. What are we going to have to troubleshoot? Let's see. We have lights on in the system. That's interesting. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Right, so that light's come on. This is where I find I haven't hooked up the power button correctly or something stupid like that. That's all on. That's all plugged in. That's all plugged in. Where's that light coming from? Alright, that's going to be a couple of hours work this evening. Trying to figure that one out. This is the joy when you're building yourself. Sometimes it goes right, sometimes it goes wrong. Everything's getting power, but it's not turning on. Suggests I've plugged in a pin wrong. Let's check the pins. Any those dangling off? No, they all look about the right length, right position. E12 USBs in, E3 4 USBs in. All the USBs are in the correct spots. Fan, CPU out. Correct spot. That's plugged into the right point. That's plugged into the right point. SLI is connected up. CPUs. Bias lights on. I'm presuming it's something to do with the power button, and I'm presuming I haven't put that in right, because everything else is connected up. So I'm presuming it's something to do with the way I've configured the power button. I'm going to have fun with your panel, aren't I? Well, life happens. That's going to be now the panel manual. Hello everyone, how are we all doing? Apologies for the ropey start. So, hello Knight6831. Oh, Patreon64, you can think of several questions. Hello Peter Dawson. Hello Tanya Felka. Hello Amelia Barra. Hello Bozaski. Hello Michael Cooch. Hello John Shea. Hello Calvin Gansberg. Hello Stafford. Always good to have. And Glyn. So we have 2 admins on already. Hello Tanif. Hello Ian Stradling. Hello the Royal Router. Hello Peter Dawson. Hello Michael Cooch. Seneca Nero. Hello. Yes, I have a CD drive. Bug Guy 8029. Hello. Hi Stephen Richards. Hello everyone. Hello Night Heron Productions. People use big computers? Yes. Hello Magla. IT troubleshooting? No. As said, I'll work through it with the system. There are various options for what it could be. But my main thinking is the most obvious is probably the correct, in that I have probably misconfigured the panel notes somehow. Which, before anyone asks, yes, of course I did go through with the instruction manual, because I know those notes are quite annoying. So, that's annoying, but we'll see. We'll get it done. Everything is hooked up as it should be. All the things are connected in the right spots. Yeah. It's going to be fun. We all know what Patron 69 will be. Who knows what Patron 69 will be? Skim through it. What was wrong with the cables? They were too short. If I do the correct power supply thingy and turn everything off, slowly, carefully, and with proper force applied, I can show you if we do this and I do... Where did I put my mobile phone now? Ah, there it is. So, hello. And it's just too low on the camera. So, you notice that the power supply unit here is kind of dinky. It's small form. Still quiet, but small form Corsair. And the reason was because this is where the hard drives are, etc. And I didn't want the full form, if I was buying a new one, taking up all that space. I thought better to have air. So that's there. That's the S550. And yeah, 750. And basically, that one's cables, though, I measured everything with the length of the cables, the module coming from here. Which meant all the cables were roughly 50 millimeters, 25, 50 millimeters too short to reach up here, which is the graphics card power supply, and up there. So that's what I had to do some mods for to get it to. And yeah, that's plugged in properly. That's plugged in properly. And there's a nice little forest of, if I do this again, forest of cables hidden around the back here. And as you can see, the two long ones have to have connectors on them. So these ones are connected cables. See, there's a connector on them. And a connector on this one as well. That one's a little loose, but not that loose. Yeah. But that's all going to be neatened up and hidden. Yep. Oh well. Right, so into today's books. And you'll notice I've divided today up into 3 categories. Mainly because there are 3 categories of books which are worthwhile looking at today, and it made sense to divide them up into 3. How is everyone? Patron 69 will be whatever you all, of course, vote for it to be. That's all I'm going to say. I'm leaving it entirely up to all of you and your voting suggestions. But Patron 69, if I remember correctly, is going to be... Ooh, let's see. Patron 69 will be... So we have 66 and 67 this month, don't we? Or would we have 65 and 66? There is a very easy way to check, Alex. Just go check your system. Hope the rookie doesn't shout out. And go to your channel. Go to upcoming video live streams. We have Epic Blunders in History, Patreon 64. Well, then we have 65. So, yeah. 64 and 65 are October. 66 and 67 are November. 68 and 69 are December. So 69 is going to be December. So goodness gracious, and knows what all of you will vote for. Be interesting. No, Glyn, the cables I got, I recommend to you, literally arrived today. I recommend those cables to you, I think, yesterday. They arrived today. That's what arrived. And they should be okay. Did I see a younger you on Quest the other day? Not that much younger. I only filmed that about 2-3 years ago. Not that much younger. It's just I didn't have I'd shaved off my beard at one point from one of my mum's birthdays. You went, I haven't seen you had a beard for so long, so I'd like you to have without a beard. I went, okay. Then I came back and they did some filming with me without the beard and went, now keep without the beard for the rest of the filming. I went, okay. Hello, Glyn. Hello to the furry assistants. Language. Half speaking of books, are you aware of Besides Rebuilding Royal Navy by Dave Brown, that look at what was hoped for the Royal Navy in the post-war years? I found out about a proposed RN SSBN desert battleship for East of Suez operations to support the 5th unbuilt Resolution class. I was hoping to find more details. There's lots of interesting stuff about that potential ship. That happens, Wayne. '69 has many meanings in the UK. So, to getting us started, we have first book. Oh, good lord. This is where I really need to make sure I keep my... Why am I opening the fridge for my book list? Goodness gracious me. This is why I shouldn't have done the IT thing, because that just makes me now... How do I put this? Have a little bit of abstraction in my head, working through all the issues and going, I'm sure I connected that and that correctly, and double check that. Oh. Right then, so, currently live. Well, Taffer in jail, Why do they make it so difficult on your phone to remember these things? And to find these things out? Now. Don't want that repeating on all of you. And yep. And boop. And more. And yes. Victory, first one. Yes, Victory was the first one. And where did I put Victory down? Victory's up there. That's Microsoft's Office. There we go. Right. So, first today's book. Victory, 100 gun first rate, 1765. I do have a tagline for this, but Kate Jemison might not like it, which is, this is Kate Jemison's dream book. It is a really, really cool book. It has all sorts of history in it, but also has, of course, all the discussion, all the models that you can buy to build it. So, it's really quite cool. And, of course, the paint scheme. Although, if people really didn't know the paint scheme of Victory, I'd be kind of surprised these days. But you never know. It's nice to have options, and it is nice to have it explained to you. And the work they do is really, really cool. This is a scratch-built Victory. Scratch-built by Kazunobu Shira. And basically, this is the work of... I can only describe it as the work of not just passion, but of your life. In some respects, there's even little bits of rope being made individually. Right then. But no, it's a very, very good book. It's quite nice. It's as I said, it combines the best of a little short history book and a discussion of all the models available and what you can use them for. Now, GHQ have a 100-gun ship which can be used as a Victory. Langton Miniatures make a Victory. Henry Turner makes a Victory. Meridian Trafalgar Range Victory gets its own discussion. So does the Artist Hobby HMS Victory. It's amazing how many different forms of model you can make from one ship, and how different the quality of those models are. As someone who has built the Revell Victory and then given it to a family member, I can honestly say the Revell and the Airfix models of Victory are both equally fiddly and equally fun. But that was, I'm talking about the intermediate scale and the 1/450 scale. I haven't done the 1/180 scale. That looks pretty darn cool. And Revell, hello! That's a very nice looking design. And then you have, oh my, oh that's 1/64 Amati HMS Victory. That looks like a construction project. Basically, for anyone who's watching this who has a member of their family who has an engineering intent and can be really long-winded discussing engineering and like models at Christmas, if you give them this present on Christmas morning and tell them they can go off and study building it, you will not see them till the 2nd of January. There is nothing wrong with that. It just gives you peace. I'm talking about both the book and the model. Nice to everyone. You're going on a full Hood and Wales and Bismarck discussion in the chat. If Hood is still around, do they still build Vanguard? That's an interesting question. My temptation is to say yes, they do. But my temptation is... It's going to sound strange, but she'll be completed for the same reason Hood was completed post-World War I. And that is because the British have a habit of completing something which has all the knowledge they've built up in it in terms of capital ships. And honestly, trying to not do that would have been going against so much inertia in British politics, it would have been impossible. It would have just been impossible not to. A Drachenfell Christmas present. I think if you got Drachenfell, that model, it would never, ever not be done. It would be done so quickly it'd be almost obscene. Let's see. What I'm doing, which is going to sound strange, is keeping this running on my phone as well, so I can keep track of if it goes weird. So, Shipwrecks in 100 Objects was the 22-minute one, and that's this one. Why did I put this upside down? Why didn't I just do it? Why didn't I reverse stack it? Goodness gracious me. So, Shipwrecks in 100 Objects by Simon Willis. This is a cool book. It stutters occasionally, but not too serious. I'm glad, but I am hopeful to get this. We will have a discussion, this one, and me, and it'll be working shortly. Now, this is a cool book. It has RNLI gold medal in it. Ball lid from Polona. All sorts of things. It's a cool history book. It's even got an Armada medal in it. In hmm, it's just kind of cool. Then we have one example. The coat of arms of Bermuda is in here. This is a cool one. Bermuda comprises a group of islands in the North Atlantic. Its coat of arms has two notable features: a red lion representing Britain, and a ship striking rocks amidst the waves of a furious storm. The ship portrayed is Sea Venture, which left Plymouth with six other ships in 1609, laden with settlers and supplies for the struggling British settlement of Jamestown, Virginia. It never arrived. On 24th of July 1609, the fleet encountered powerful storms. One ship floundered, and the remainder became separated. Sea Venture struggled against the wind and waves, leaking so badly that the crew and passengers had to work the pumps and bail out around the clock. Some of the cargo had even the ship's guns were heaved overboard. As the crew became exhausted, the water in the hold reached critical levels, so that sinking was imminent. Yet by good fortune, land was sighted on the morning of the 20th of July. It was decided to run the ship aground in order to save lives, and as a result, Sea Venture was sailed onto the rocky shore of Bermuda. These islands were already known, but uninhabited. Their isolated position, tempestuous coasts, and strange calls of wildlife had lent them a sinister name, the Isle of the Devils. According to one contemporary account, Bermuda was populated by wicked spirits and was feared and avoided of all sea travellers alive above any other place in the world. 150 people arrived on board the wrecked Sea Venture, including Sir George Somers, the Admiral of the Virginia Company of London that had sent forth the fleet. Together they were stranded on Bermuda for 9 months. They were very well provisioned from the ship's stores and the edible bounty of the islands, but there were many setbacks. There were deaths, even a murder, and multiple rebellions, which were put down mercifully until, in the end, one ringleader was court-martialed and shot. Might as well. Remarkably, the survivors built two new ships, the appropriately named Deliverance and Patience. They used wood and rigging salvaged from the wreck of the Venture, as well as locally sourced timber. By May 1610, the ships were ready to sail. And departed for Jamestown, arriving safely. Two seamen, named Carter and Waters, were left behind in Bermuda. George Somers returned to the island in late 1610 to collect further supplies for Jamestown, but died there. His body was taken back to England, yet for centuries the islands were popularly known as the Summer Isles in his honour. Accounts by two of the castaways stranded on Bermuda were published shortly after their return to England and are believed to have inspired one of the last of Shakespeare's plays, The Tempest. It's an interesting book, and again, another good one for probably Christmas, but also it's a new book, so it's interesting to get. Marga, anyone else getting stutters? Hopefully not too many. Take care, Glenn. On the day after World War II begins in 1939, UK can take all its ships into dry dock for 1 day, all at the same time, modernize them fully to a 1939 standard. Will they do it and lose that 1 day? And how will that change the war? Without a doubt, they do it, because what are the odds? What's Germany going to get done in that 1 day? Especially as, what's anyone going to get done? If it's in 1939, there's hardly any German Navy in the world. And if they can take them into dry dock, you're not specifying that it has to be in dry dock in the UK, but they can dry dock them all around the empire, all around the world, so they won't lose their global presence. And then magically in 1 day get them all up to 1939 standard, yeah, they'd be very happy to do it. You know, you think about it, you lose a day, but you gain ships which are all reconditioned with their latest engines, radar, have the latest AA guns fitted. You're going to do it. How would that change the war? if you have every ship suddenly have radar in 1939, every ship have upgraded engines and fully modernized armor, etc., i.e., a renowned style refit for a Pulse, Warspite Queen Elizabeth, and Valiant refit for all the other Queen for Malaya and the other Queen and Barham. Barham sort of had a bit of refit, but you know what I mean. And all the R class being upgraded to Royal Oak standard. That's a very happy Royal Navy. And you'll think about it: all the C class, all the D class, all the E class cruisers upgraded. Every single ship upgraded to the best standard they can in 1939. They'd be very happy. That's thinking, what would you replace World War One 6-inch, 4-inch, and 12-pounder guns if you're upgrading the coastal defenses? When am I doing this? Because if I'm doing it for World War Two, probably if I can get my hand on some 8-inch guns, county class, I'd be happy with those. In fact, really, if I was being sensible and I was doing Falklands, I would just build some more county class turrets and stick them down there. You make batteries each of I would say I would put in 5 batteries each of 3 turrets of 8-inch guns. That's just to secure it against anyone who wants to come for it. And if anyone comes with more than with enough to take on that much of firepower, then frankly they're welcome to the islands, because that's more than I want to defend it with. It's me. My dad has parts for a Kelly Sark model since 50 years in the cupboard. Take care, Amelia. Doc, the question is, how many times has Victory figurehead been sold? Oh, good lord, don't get me started on that one. The amount of people who believe they're buying that figurehead. It's almost obscene. It is almost obscene. It really is. This is one for more of the engineering aviation geeks, but it's a cool one. It's one I've got a fair number of students of mine reading currently, whether they like it or not. Powering the World's Airlines by Reiner Decher. And it's all about the engines which power airliners. And it starts off with, well, the mugshot collection, as I would call it, or the pictorial people index, as the author has put it. But let's be honest, that does look like a mugshot collection. And that's all the various engineers. Involved. It's an interesting book. It really is. It's divided into we are flying, aviation's all the rage, the 1930s, real air transport airplanes, Chapter 4, engines for the war effort, Chapter 5, Cold War engines and post-Hot War airliners, Chapter 6, jet airliners, Chapter 7, the turbofan engine, and Chapter 8, how to buy an airliner. Now, Chapter 8 it kind of interested me because, I was thinking, well, if I could buy an airliner, I could turn it into the world's coolest tiny home, because instead of being one of those people who drives around the country in a mobile home they've built, I could fly around the world in a mobile home I've built. Now, wouldn't that be cool? Not as cool as sailing around the world, but I haven't found a book yet which has how to buy a warship in it. But I do have a book which has how to buy an airliner, so it's a start, okay? Besides, perhaps I sell the airliner to someone like, I don't know, Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, and then I have enough to fund my warship build. How does an airline executive decide whether to buy a few airliners that an airframe builder might offer? The airline official will have to consider purchase price, fuel, and crew expense, airport fees, maintenance, and other costs to be balanced against what the airliner can earn its hopefully long life. Fuel consumption rate is a cost component that an airplane or engine designer can and must have a good handle on. The price of fuel is another matter. The airline executive probably asks, will you guarantee the fuel use performance of the airplane when I put the airplane in service? The answer is, of course, yes. The airplane manufacturer must have a pretty good idea what they can promise and guarantee. The issue is thorny. A very safe guarantee level from the manufacturer will result in sales lost to a competitor who may be willing to take more risks by guaranteeing a better performance level. If the manufacturer strays over the real performance level by promising something better than he can deliver, they will be contractually obliged to pay for the excess fuel used, or something equivalent to that. When you have a fleet of airliners operating 16 hours a day, every day of the year, a small error can quickly devolve into a financial nightmare. It's good. There's a bit of lag, like the camera's filming at 12 frames a second. Well, the camera is capable of more than that. The camera is theoretically capable of 60 frames per second. The camera is. However, and it's currently supposed to be doing 30 frames per second. But, yeah, there is supposed to be a new camera and microphone setup is part of the plan. Unfortunately, the system I keep planning on getting keeps going in and out of. Well, I explained it on a Patreon post. And handling was quite bad post-modernization. London's handling wasn't bad post-modernization. I think they would probably do some things to it. But, yeah, it's not too bad. It's not terrible. It happens. Let's put it this way. HS London's handling post-modernization... It went from being a race car to being a rally car. That's the description. Now that's the best way I can describe it. It goes from being race car handling to rally car handling. There's a difference. You need to read the route slightly more. But you have that because you have a suspension that's designed to deal with the rough and tumble of the world a bit more. So yeah, there are fours and there are half a dozen one, 6 the other for it. That's the case. So anyway, some modern-day cruise ships get sent back into World Wars. Would they sail alone or in convoy? In convoy. None of them are fast enough to sail alone. Maybe the QM3. Well, is it QM3 or Queen Elizabeth 3? It's QM3, isn't it? Or QM2? The really new one. That liner, that could possibly sail alone, but the rest are all too slow. Stephen Richards, if all British 15-inch ships are refitted, does King George V's get 15-inch triples? No, because that's not the question. The question was, are you modernising and upgrading the ships? If you're modernising and upgrading them one day, yes. It doesn't say. The question wasn't, are you rebuilding the entire fleet, including construction? I'd love to make the... honestly, to my mind, the King George V should never have been built with 14-inch guns. There is a debate as whether 15 or 16-inch guns. The debate, as Drac and I have both discussed at various points, and I'm honestly not sure now which one of us has come with it first or pushed more into it. But Queen Mary 2. Yeah, that was the name of the ship, yeah. So let's put it this way. If you go for the 15-inch gun, you can then upgrade all the British existing 15-inch battleships. If you go for a 16-inch gun, triple turret, you could theoretically also upgrade Nelson and Rodney. So that's your thing. Either is our options. You can either get a really good 16-inch gun going, or you could get a really good 15-inch gun going. And considering the RN has 5 Queen Elizabeths, 5 R-Class, Renown, Repulse, and Hood, all with 15-inch guns, I myself would go for the 15-inch gun, because then I could upgrade 13 other ships. Michael, if you make a load of coastal defense 8-inch turrets, then you could make quick makings for a quick wartime build of repeated cannons without violence and treaties. I know. It's amazing. Especially when you realise they're all triple 8-inch turrets. So I only need 3 turrets, i.e. 1 battery's worth of guns for 1 ship, to have 9 8-inch guns for that ship. And that would mean the Falklands had 45 turrets on it, 45 guns on it. And if you have 8-inch guns, that would basically mean that if you were going to attack it, you have to bring a carrier and capital ships. It's just impossible for you not to. Right then. That is a cool book. Then we have this one. Motorsport's Military Heroes. I have no idea where I've got this book. I really don't. I think it must have been sent to me by Pen and Sword, considering it's got their little note in it. But honestly, it's one of those ones which has been in my book pile for a while, and I ended up reading going, this is more interesting than I thought it was going to be. Honestly, I had the distinct impression, I was worried it was going to be just a, this is an amazing person, da-da-da-da-da. Actually, no. It has people like Eddie Rickenbacker in, who lived 1890 to 1973, served in the U.S. Army Air Service in the First World War, Indianapolis 500 driver, and Congressional Medal of Honor recipient, which is a pretty cool person to talk about. Edward Vernon Rickenbacker was born on the 8th of October 1890 to Swiss-German immigrants Wilhelm and Liesl Rickenbacker in Livingston Avenue, Columbus, Ohio. They were responsible for installing a strong work ethic and love for his native country from an early age. His boyhood home was once described as follows. In around 1893 or 1895, William Rickenbacker built the first part of a simple L-shaped, gable-roofed dwelling. Initially, the house consisted of 2. The Rickenbackers, the name is anglicised, Rickenbacker, were not a wealthy family. In the house they built, they had no running water or electricity. They lived in a largely rural, agrarian community, with Father William being a practical-minded disciplinarian and Mother Elizabeth. As a child, Eddie loved to deconstruct and reconstruct things, under the mantra from his father that a machine has to have a purpose. Eddie was no angel. He was smoking by the age of 5 and headed a gang of young rogues known as the Horsehead Gang. Aged 8, he led the gang in a kind of soapbox cart down a slide into a deep gravel pit. It flipped on its side, landing on him and cutting his leg to the bone. He also tried to fly a bicycle outfitted with an umbrella off his friend's barn roof. On the other hand, he helped in the family garden, harvesting potatoes, cabbages, and red turnips, cared for the animals, chickens, goats, and pigs. He brought in money by delivering papers, setting up pins at the bowling alley, and selling scavenged goods to the junk man. He gave most of his nickels to his mother, but spent some on Bull Durham tobacco. He had picked up the smoking habit from his older brother Bill. It's a cool book. It's full of, if you're interested in motorsport and you like sort of reading those personal accounts of heroes, of people who are definitely deserving of the title hero and who are, it's a warts and all account of them, this is a good one to have. And it's by Bryan Lightbody. It's cool. Hang on, that sounds like my grandfather used to buy buses back when they were nationalised. Mr. Richards, your odds are 16 million times more likely to crash driving to the airport than you will die in said plane crash. Flying is the safest mode of transport by magnitude. It's certainly fun. I enjoy a nice flight, but I have this. I have made gunny highway far too mad with me far too many times in my life. My hips and ankles remember it every time. Nice to know. If the Argentine invasion force came under attack from one of these 8-inch gun batteries, how much damage are we talking? Let's put it this way. If you'd had a working 8-inch gun battery with 3 treble 8-inch guns in the Falklands War, then you could have probably destroyed the invasion force. They had enough trouble with the Marine garrison as it was. If the Marines had been able to get an 8-inch gun battery working, there would have been a nightmare. Plus, the odds are if you did have these batteries still continuing, and for some reason they'd been crewed during the war, then each battery would have needed some sort of garrison to both crew it and to protect it. So you'd have a far larger garrison on the islands. You probably have some form of air defense position for those things because they could be attacked by aircraft. And yeah, it'd be interesting. I have to admit, in my probably what I would have done is 1980s tech, 1970s, 1986 tech. If I'd wanted to minimize personnel, and I continued on with the habit of using naval personnel to run them, and I was still using those 8-inch gun batteries, etc., I'd have automated the 8-inch gun turrets and automated to get shells the firing as much as possible. And probably I'd automate their air defense as much as possible by getting some sort of phalanx system and sticking, or goalkeeper, perhaps Dutch goalkeepers. I like those. Putting 3 of those for each battery, so you'd have a sort of star formation of the 3 8-inch guns, and then the 3 sort of goalkeepers to provide them with some close-in protection from enemy air attack, and then have some sort of air defense missile system. But you'd be talking about a very heavy garrison for all that. My coach, gun batteries will probably be manned by Falkland Islands Defence Force. Britain has formed using local reserves in that role. That would be true, but you would require a lot more personnel than the FIDF could provide, so it would have to be partially naval, partially FIDF. Have you fully recovered? I'm better than I was. Let's leave it at that. You and I are going to be having words later. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I wonder. That's a potential. That is a potential. Mm-hmm. Sorry, just had a little idea. Let me check that's all. Yep, that's on. That's on. Where is that light coming from? Sorry, it's just it's intriguing me that the light is coming on. Ah, well, the motherboard. That's the light from the motherboard. So the motherboard's lights are coming on. So the motherboard's getting power, but it's not turning the computer on. This is confusing me. Wayne's World of Technology. Leonardo Volcano 127mm automated guns don't need on-pearl personnel. No, modern 127mm guns don't, but 8-inch guns built in the 1920s do, and 8-inch guns in the 1950s still needed someone. The late 1940s, 1950s still need. They're automated, but not to 100%. So yeah, it's a nice way of going. Yes, modern guns they don't need people, but if we're talking about an 8-inch gun, which is 1920s, 1930s origin in construction, even if it was modernized and made as automated as it could be in the 1940s, would not be uncrewed in the 1980s. It just wouldn't be. Not PC building stream. No, not a PC building stream. Now, we're now into U-Boats, 1939 to 45. And that is... Where's that book? That book's here. Under these magazines. Haynes. There's Haynes. It's really quite cool. And this is literally owner's manual for U-Boats. And I picked it up because of some of the books I'm working on myself at the moment. A nice mortar. Hedgehog. Ooh. Type 21. It's the thing I always find interesting whenever people talk about these vessels entering service and saying how much of a game changer they'd be, is they sort of almost always predicate themselves on the anti-submarine warfare force, the convoy protection force, staying the same. And you sit there and go, no, it would adjust to fit them. And anyways, they were better. but they were not as dramatic an improvement and definitely not available in the numbers that they would have needed to make a dramatic change. Ah, the snorkel. The snorkel. The Type 7C class U-boats were installed later into the war on lower portside foredeck and housed in a special recess. To the left is the arm, which raised and lowered the snorkel, while the snorkel itself, containing pipes for expelling foul air from these engines and drawing fresh air down to submarine, is to the left. It's a fun system. It's a cool book. John Shea, what was Doc talking about for 8-inch auto reload naval guns and 30mm goalkeepers, closely mounted in light context? Falklands War. Basically, the idea was, I was talking about 8-inch guns earlier in terms of what would be the accurate, good defense to build into the Falklands. And I said if I was doing it prior to World War II, I'd probably use 8-inch guns and county-class turrets. Either twin or if I could get away with it, triple 8-inch. 3 turrets per battery. Is the frame rate a slide slow for a show to anyone else? You're basically going, you don't want to work, and that one is just not starting. Both computers having an argument today. Oh, Wayne, seriously, do not say that. We now mock him because the PC doesn't work. It'll work. It's got lights on, so it's getting power. I don't know. It'll be fun. It'll be fun, and it'll be done. Now, next book. I'm a little early fitting the next book. Then he said, did the snorkel both act as both intake and exhaust? I thought it was just intake, and the engine stopped exhaust against ambient of the water, which caused reduced power output. Let's check the manual. Which raised and lowered a snorkel, while the snorkel itself, containing pipes of expelling foul air from the diesel engines and drawing fresh air down the submarine, is to the left. So on the 7C, on the U-boat, according to Haynes, it does both. Sanderson Thompson, do we need an old priest on the horse? No, we don't. That'll be fine. Goodness gracious me. This is computer number 9 I've built. Computer number 2 turned into very reliable, but it took 2 weeks after construction to get it to work all right, because it turned out the pins on the motherboard were slightly bent. It happens when you build your own computers. Sometimes they work perfectly. That number 8 and 7 and 6. Uh, worked fine. 6 and 8. Number 7 was a bit weird. Right. Escape the Amethyst of the Amethyst. I am watching myself on this screen, and yes, it is a little weird today. Fun times. If it keeps up being weird, I have to admit I will be tempted to cut things short and finish off the rest of the books next week, and then try and concentrate on getting that working so it's all finished and all working, so we don't ever have to do this again. We'll see. If it can keep going okay, then I'll be all right with it. Well, yeah, it's been 20 years, and I won't mention which navy, but I had an inquiry about how to remove diesel exhaust gases so that subs and surface ships couldn't be tracked by chemical sniffers. We've had fun. That's been going on for a while. Right, so, Escape of the Amethyst. Amethyst is a cool little story. It really is. And this is a good book. It's a recent republication of this book. 4 days later, there came a long signal from a commander-in-chief instructing Cairns to convey a personal message from him to General Yuan, in which the procedure that ought to be followed for settling matters was logically outlined. As this exposition was to underlie the whole of the rest of the Battle of Wits, we shall set out in our own terms the main points of it here. Captains of frigates are not the proper persons to negotiate on international responsibilities. These are for high diplomatic levels, and discussions had in fact been started by the British ambassador in Nanking with the Communist Foreign National Affairs Department. Moreover, the present commanding officer of the Amethyst could not speak with direct knowledge of this incident because he was not there. The question of safe conduct for the ship to return to downriver, however, was a local one, governed by military conditions only, and capable of being settled without prejudice to the political issue of responsibility. No military grounds now exist for refusing a safe conduct, and detention of the ship or on any other grounds would have serious international consequences. Lieutenant Commander Cairns was authorized to represent the Commander-in-Chief in explaining any point that was not clear and to make argument arrangements for the safe passage, though he could not be authorized to discuss international responsibilities. These grounds, the Commander-in-Chief, always in close consultation with the Admiralty and with the Ambassador, was to maintain consistently throughout the whole imbroglio. Armed with these instructions, Cairns left the ship on May 24th in response to a summons to a meeting with Kang Mao Chao, the political commissar. As he stepped into the sampan, dressed carefully in the smartest uniform that could be found on the ship, his mind was heavy with doubt. He had no inkling of what might lie ahead or what outrage might be committed or of what hornet's nest he might run into, but he was certain that the meeting would be a tough one. This sort of thing was emphatically not the business of a naval officer. He was met on shore by Tai, and amid curious stares of peasants and yellow-clad soldiery, escorted by him on a walk of about a mile and a half before they reached the road, where they picked up a captured American command car, from which, except for the tires, all trace of American origin had been carefully removed. In this hostile world, Cairns was quite alone, without an interpreter. He felt all eyes upon him as he re-entered Chinkang, and beheld it under its new masters. The sun beat down on the narrow streets, dusty and crowded. Among their flaunting signs, the peculiar odours of a Chinese city, the faint sweet scent of herb shops, the heady aroma of food frying in deep fat with spices, the stale smell of human bodies, and the pervading undertone of excreta, hung in the air and accentuated the rising beat. The yellow-clad soldiery and the dark blue civilians padded noiselessly in the dust, tokens of an unhurried world. Beneath all this was a new tautening attention and grit. For Cairns, the atmosphere was very critical. The fate of a ship, the lives of some 80 men, and above all, the good name of the great nation hung upon how he was to carry through a battle of polemics in which he had no training. This was a politician's job, not a seaman's. He knew now that he would have to fight not merely for the safe passage of his ship, but for his country's honour. He would need all his wits about him. But there were certain things on which he was determined to stand firm at all costs. In his frame of mind did this. Daniel, slightly aloof and cynical in borrowed uniform, stepped from the car, passed the sentries, traversed the courtyard, and entered the Communist Lion's Den. And what of them? Within a big, thick-walled, grey stone building of the panoply, the blare and showmanship of the propaganda flaunted their apparatus. Green garlands festooned the building, an enormous blown-up photograph of Mao Zedong's slab-like visage affronted the eye at the very entrance, and again aside, indeed, it was everywhere. Indoors, the pencils of the communist press were itching to record a story of British humiliation, and the camera hung ready to wink its eye. All was carefully staged, a long table in a large, bare room, with a stage at the end and a stove in the corner, very like a mess, stood ready for the performance. In this setting, with another great photograph of Mao staring at him, Cairns met General Jang. He was a short, round man, bland of face, and by no means bearing the semblance of a hard-bitten warrior, well-educated and later to be ambassador to India. Cairns handed him the Commander-in-Chief's personal message, and they all sat down at the table, with the woman photographer's camera clicking away, taking shots of Cairns from all angles. She was a tall, flat, apathetic Amazonian creature. One was supported by a political commissar, of whom Cairns had been told, Colonel Kang Mao Shu, and in him Cairns beheld a well-fleshed, bullet-headed man, with black, close-cropped hair of cold, hard visage, and stiff and severe in manner. As it turned out later, Kang was a Peking lawyer. He was a bitter and uncompromising communist, and it was to be with this intractable opponent, this slab of concrete, that Cairns was to have to fight so long and devastating a battle of wits. It was he who was the real cat outside the mouse hole. Besides these three, there were two weedy little reporters and two interpreters, one of whom was Captain Jen Huixin, a fiery young communist from Kunming University. Facing this array, with all these hostile eyes fastened on him, and the camera winking freely, Cairns felt very lonely, and he was to feel more lonely still before the meeting was over, for very quickly he found himself facing an opponent who was not interested in discussing facts, but had prepared an ultimatum based on a pre-arranged falsification of them. Everything was fabricated on the well-known thesis that communism must never admit an error, and that the prisoner was required to plead guilty before evidence. The atmosphere was extremely tense and forbidding. Jan, having read Admiral Brind, remember? Brind? Brind is not unused to the situations in the Far East. We've talked about Brind before when he was a captain. Began the meeting by replying to it with an almost extraordinary proposition. Amethyst, he said, had invaded the CPLA territory and had fired on their batteries. He could not consider the grant of a safe passage. He now told the amazed Cairns until the British fleet first admitted their guilt. Details of the exact degree of responsibility and of compensation to be paid must be left to negotiation subsequently, but there must first be an acknowledgement of blame by the British. I'm not empowered to discuss that, replied Cairns, astonished at this extraordinary attitude. An officer of my rank could obviously never be authorized to discuss a matter of such importance. That is a political matter to be dealt with by our embassy. My sole concern is to procure safe conduct for my ship. I observe, said Yuan, the Admiral says that negotiators are proceeding Nanking. This is not true. The Foreign National Affairs Department has no such authority. The matter is to be decided here, and I shall not discuss the safe conduct until you accept responsibility for this act of violence against the CPLA. With that, he got up and left the meeting. The chair was then taken by Kang. He opened his attack, for attack it was, by presenting to Cairns a memorandum for Admiral Brind of the most preposterous nature. It contained 3 main articles. The first reiterated that Amethyst naval warships had committed brutal acts by invading CPL territory. The second declared that the Amethyst purposely provoked and fired the first shot. Once again, the British fleet sent its warships in to reinforce in attacking with gunfire the battlefront of the CPLA. The third article alleged that Amethyst and other warships coordinated with the Kuomintang forces and hampered military operations of the CPLA, thereby producing a situation advantageous to the Kuomintang. These facts, the memorandum went on, were widely known and could not be altered. The British must take full responsibility and must fulfil the following demands. And acknowledge that such actions by the British warships were wrong and apologise for them in CPLA, promised to pay compensation for the damage sustained by the CPLA and its people. Fulfilling these demands was a prerequisite to any negotiated safe conduct. Having listened to this startling document, and keeping his temper with difficulty, Cairns thought it best not to argue its points in too much detail at present juncture, but to demonstrate that, in every aspect of the military and political situation, invasion was a gross misuse of words. Then followed a grim, protracted, and sterile argument. Towards the end of it, Cairns felt some easing of the tension. Kang uttered some platitude about Sino-British friendship, and Cairns, remembering the sensitivity of communists to the world opinion, seized his opportunity. I quite agree, he said. If you subject my ship's company to further hardship, you'll certainly damage Sino-British relationships, and you'll damage your name of the world at large. What are these hardships? Asked the communist sharply. The Chinese army bears no ill will to your men. In the first place, Cairns replied, you're still detaining 2 of my wounded men at Wutsin. Very well, I will see that they are returned to you, provided you make a formal request in writing. I have done so already, but I will do so again now. I have repeatedly asked for their return. We are also beginning to suffer on board ship because of the shortage of provisions and fuel. It is beginning to get hot. I'm having to economize fuel, and conditions at night will soon be very unpleasant. Kang replied that Karen's Chinese would have liberty to buy provisions for the ship, but he refused to ignore or recognize that the tension of the ship imposed any responsibility on the communists to provide her with food and necessities. The prisoner must somehow fend for himself. He refused to submit. Why sustain the morale of men whom you tend to beat to submission? As to the fuel problem, which we shall come to in a moment, it was weeks before Kang realized that the ship did not burn coal. It's a good one. Amethyst was a sloop. To be precise, if I remember correctly, she was a Black Swan class, a modified Black Swan class, I think, from memory. That is from memory. Please note that's from memory. Let me just check that one. Definitely looks like a modified Black Swan. Yeah. She was a modified Black Swan. No, seriously, would I be right that the British could have built the capital ships and the escorts at the same time? They didn't need to slow down the capital ships? They could have, but that would have meant they wouldn't have been able to build the escorts as fast. You can still build both at the same time, but you can't build escorts as fast if you're also building the capital ships. Is there a list of every warship name used by the Royal Navy? Yeah, and it's available to be bought. Ship names of the Royal Navy. Take care, Wayne. No, take everyone. If the CIA had sunk a British ship and with all hands, and the British had known it was the CIA, then it would have been public knowledge around the world, and the CIA would have been in real trouble, because that would be it. Let's put it this way: United States president would either have to admit that the CIA could go rogue and attack other nations with his support, who were supposedly allies, or he would have to say they'd gone rogue and he couldn't control them. It would have been the biggest loss of face they could have faced, and the CIA as an organization would not have survived under its name. It would have to be renamed, rebranded in order to survive. Richards, how do you argue lies and BS with the truth loudly? Hold on. Ryan, what's next book? Oh yeah, this is a on the Christmas recommendations, and this book is quite a good one. A young author. It's one of his first books. I do know that he's putting all the money he gets from this book and from his YouTube channel, and also, this is going to sound strange. I can understand. So far today, I've had 3 people buy stuff on the Spreadshirt store, which is very nice. One person bought a shirt. Thank you very much. There are going to be some more shirts coming up soon, and there are going to be some more changes on the Patreon. I've got some more things to put in and put on the Patreon side. And one person bought a single cup. I can understand that. One person bought 18 cups. Okay? One person bought 18 cups. If you are watching, if the person who bought 18 cups, because I'm not going to put their name out loud or anything like that, because they bought it from the store and I don't have those particular details. Could you please comment as to why you're buying 18 cups? Because this caused me to have discussion, because I've suddenly noticed that there have been people who bought 12. A fair number of people bought 12. I've had about 6 or 7 orders of 12. Someone bought 18 cups. I don't think you're probably selling them on elsewhere, because if you are, you must be doing a massive markup to make it work and make any money at all. Considering I know how much those mugs cost, and there's only so much people would really pay for them. So my assumption is that you are equipping an entire house with mugs with my designs on, which is lovely, or an entire office. Either way, I'd love to. I was wondering actually if it was a fire station had bought a load of mugs, because that I was looking at it, but I have no idea. As I said, some people, a dozen mugs went to Brazil the other day. Today, 18 mugs have gone to somewhere in America. Or was it for Xmas presents? It's a bit early for Xmas presents, but yeah, this is very good. This is an interesting book, and it contains some really cool passages. Goodall was a details man, judicious in the use of language, a good example of which is a post-war piece in which he described some of the difficulties building the vital convoy escorts essential to the Battle of Atlantic. One important matter in planning, a word that has become rather unpopular of late, is the psychology of the people called upon to carry out the plans. We have heard a great deal about prefabricated ships in the United States. There, the shipyard labor was new and had to be trained so that the methods adopted were readily accepted. But in our case, the prefabricated parts were assembled by men used to normal practice. They might vote progressive in elections, but they are conservative in their work. It was very trying after all our efforts to see work absolutely stopped because two unions could not agree which should put together the prefabricated parts to make a fair ship. Eventually, that difficulty was overcome, but we lost some valuable time. One can imagine the immense frustration this must have caused, having poured so much time and energy into pushing designs forward to get them into the war as quickly as possible, so they could serve the nation to which he was devoted. Yet only a little of this is apparent. It is rarely observant, and it contains the sort of information useful for arming potential successors with the necessary understanding to enable his role to be carried out in the future. Commonwealth recups. How is biggest the crew of Mysteries of Deep? Not that big. Usually, this is going to sound strange. When I'm filming the Mysteries of Deep, usually you have a camera person, a producer, and a sort of an assistant. So usually it's 3 people, and then me talking to them, and that's what I would have to say. When I was doing, I've also done War Factories, and that was a camera person who was also the producer, so also asking questions as well as around the camera, and a sort of an assistant producer slash runner, a person running around. Have you shared a PayPal that people can directly donate funds to your cause without middlemen? Yes, there is a PayPal link. There is a PayPal link on here somewhere around here on my channel somewhere, and there is a there's a PayPal link on Twitter, I think, as well. And there's also a Ko-fi, because it's KO, so it's Ko-fi. Midran, you got to the battles. That's good. I like store purchases. I like it. I get the email and I go, "Ooh, what have I sold today? Why have I sold it?" Vision, I've not gotten to that part. To this part. Like the story about the cat from the Bismarck being rescued. Yes, that cat turned up far too many places alive. Nice, am I right now, Doc, that in the world where the British don't decline, then when on the 27th of June 1954 the British merchant ship SS Springfield is bombed and sunk by the CIA, who thought it was carrying weapons when it wasn't, aren't the British going to be very upset? The British were very upset then, they would be even more upset, but expect it to be diplomatically resolved, because the British, even in the world where the British don't decline, the British are still going to be America's allies. Now, these books, I talk about this series quite often, but really, it's a very cool Christmas present style for gift. Because if you got someone who's sort of interested in history, and sort of thinking about it, this is a very pictographic book, of course. It's very visual, so it's something which you can wander through. And it's got all these little bite-sized bits of history which will get people interested. So, to my mind, this is a great book for getting young people into history. And when I say young people, I mean I have a habit of giving books like this to 6-year-olds and occasionally one 5-year-old and 7-year-olds. Because the perfect age to get someone really hooked on history is around about 6. Okay, that's the point at which you really want to have a go at it. Not that I'm offering any hints. And these books are very good for that. Mm-hmm. That was supposed to be 124, so I got to that a little bit early. But there are more. This one's got the by Malcolm Wright. This one's volume 3, which has the cruisers. Oh, thank you, Lions. Game of supporter. Thank you. And I should say, this one then is the small escorts, which, if I'm not mistaken, we can find modified Black Swans in here. Definitely can find the sloops and the modified Black Swans. That's destroyers. Those are those. Where are the sloops? Sloops. Corvettes. Oh, they're trawlers. I have got to stop being able to know these things by. Well, I'm never going to be able to stop knowing these things by sight, but these things happen. And Black Swans we have. They're so cute. Huh, there you are. Black Swans. Good little ships. Very good little ships. 3 twin 4-inch guns. Enough firepower to deal with air attacks. Oh. Test got repeated for some reason? I don't know. With what you told me, Doc, would you agree the CIA got lucky the day that Alan Pope missed HMS Oryx? Yeah. Richards, I've got you on Patreon. What's the difference in subscribership? Some people don't like Patreon. Basically, subscribership on YouTube is... well, I have multiple levels of patron, and you, of course, submit to the can contribute to questions and put forward those topics. The subscribing on YouTube I set up originally because when it became available, people said, well, I'd like to do this because I don't like Patreon, so I thought, well, I'll set up that. And I set it up as a one-stop shop with one price. So there's no sort of tiering, etc. And the main benefits you get are you get different coloured things in the chat so I can see your names more clearly. And you get special emojis, and that's about it. So you get special emojis, and you can the chat away, and it's another way of supporting the channel. It doesn't really get you much. I find it all quite surprising, the amount of support I get for things, because I don't feel like I really give that much, but I try my best to give as much as I can do. Honestly, I'm hoping once this thing's working, which it will be, probably tonight. I don't have to go anywhere this evening, so it'll be probably me an all-nighter getting it to work and making sure it's working. I'll hopefully I'll be starting on the Christmas videos. So yeah, should be good. Let's see 40. I suspect that some snorkels did work as you're talking about, in terms of they use back pressure and all those things, but some snorkels probably didn't. It takes a while to develop these things. It's very simple. It's going to sound strange. Setting up a snorkel which lets it out, considering the fact that aircraft were using sniffers and various other things to try and hunt submarines down for quite a while before they got the back pressure to work happily and properly. Yes, you can do it, but it doesn't always work the best. So yeah, I would say that's a sort of process which they were wanting to do, and possibly achieve, and did from memory achieve it in some cases. But if I'm doing a modification to the 7C system, which is already not the youngest of the submarines available to me, I might not be able to do that. It might be just easier to hook up the exhaust and an intake pipe and exhaust pipe into a snorkel. Hi, Jimmy. Well, you're the single mug purpose. No, you only put I said someone purchased a single T-shirt, someone purchased a single mug, and someone purchased 18. And I went, that's unusual. What are you purchasing 18 mugs for? So how many do you think are sent to various defense departments around the world? I don't know. I am fairly sure that my good colleague Drakenafel gets more of it sent to those things than I do. Hi, Jack Ray. I'm going to resist the urge to start troubleshooting the subject to bounce it off. Yeah. I'm reckoning the pair button's not corrected right. I will figure it out. No, sorry, 150% increase in back pressure is just 5 meters. Sorry, 150% of normal back pressure. Either way, a significant increase. Yeah. Nice to everyone. I'm not sure what Alan Pope mistook something for, but there is all sorts of things. I would have to do a far more in-depth research before I wanted to comment too heavily on that. Sorry, I know that's very much the academic historian's answer, but it is the case. So 136.
Picasso, could you discuss the merits otherwise of the individuals who held the office of CC and DNC, or Director of Naval Construction? CC? Controller? Third Sea Lord. That's an entire book series I'm working on and a whole series of videos. So, yeah, let's put it this way: there is no real book on those at the moment. I think I've sort of decided I'm gonna have to write it. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. I'm starting. I've got a big book project, and again, I've announced this on Patreon. It's sort of one of the projects I've got working on in the background. And again, they're all things which hopefully are getting done. How do you go? In a nice 96A31, in the nicest way, no country keeps another country from doing things if they really want to do it. Usually, if a country seems to be acting as the better angel on another country's shoulder, that is an act of diplomacy. It's a way of pretending, oh, we would have done this, but we were persuaded by our allies not to. Because the whole point of being a sovereign country, especially if you're as powerful as the United States is knowing when not to use that power. And coming up with a way which allows you to say you would have used that power without having to use that power as a favour to someone else is a good excuse. But if you really wanted to do it, you'd do it. Also, a snorkel that emits fresh air is infinitely simpler than the one which also completely reroutes the exhaust to raise it to the surface. Not considering the position on the Type 7, if I remember correctly, but that is, and that is. Yeah, it's an interesting scenario. We'll see. I don't think I'll give it a good knock. I'm not going to keen on the repeating Brand Carrier. The fact is, I know the motherboard is getting power because things are lighting up behind the motherboard. So that tells me that the power supply is working. That tells me the cables to the motherboard are working. Right? So I know they're all working, so that's fine. I know I've got the connections right for all these, but it's not turning on. So if it's not turning on, the options are obviously that the power button is not arranged correctly. Now that's always a possibility. So I will go into the sort of little corner down here and pull out the plugs and reattach them and try and figure it out. The power, all the parts are here for the tower, and I was trying to turn it on at the beginning, but at the moment it's, if I show you, pressing power button, no life. However, power and everything is connected, so I'm presuming what has happened is the pins of the power button I must have got the wrong way around. I will wait till after this is over, when I've got light on and I can put it outside to do it all. Is the monitor turned on? The monitor is fine. It's just the power, and I can tell it's not coming because none of the fans come on. None of them come on at all. The monitor is turned on, waiting for it. Everything is connected. Everything is working as it should do, other than when I press the power button, it doesn't turn on. So I'm presuming power button not corrected, not correctly set up. Mea culpa. I will check them. I will check the. Well, it's a very, very long trip for me to go to this box, which I have over here. Not just went dropping down the hill, down here. It was something gold flesh. There it is. There we go.
I have to say, another booklet I've been reading quite a lot of this week. Yep. My user guide for my motherboard from Tough. We also have an Acer speed setup system. Put that all back in the place it's supposed to be, underneath everything. So I don't want it getting bent. Spare cables, yeah. Got a very nice motherboard. Night Iron Productions. Do you know anything about Admiral Rick Rover's relationship opinions of the Royal Navy? I'd heard he quite a skeptical, if not critical, of rafting machinery now in subs, which I guess incidentally is a British concept. I thought it was first deployed in the fresher class. There are fun things with Admiral Rick Rover. He can be very supportive if he agrees with you. If he doesn't agree with you, he will be, well, he kind of reminds me of one of the people we got coming up and talking about. Right. Oh, yeah. Sea Power and Victory. Well, this is one of the books I found in my travels. And where have I put this one? Oh, there it is. Now, that's this book. Sea Power and Victory. To find a copy of this one is a very lucky thing. It was produced by the Imperial Museum. It has lots of very cool pictures in it. And I did show it while I was away, but you know. Here it is again. This is, of course, this one illustrates the cruisers blocking the Bruges. Kite balloons. The fleet at sea. And submarine chasers and a captured submarine. Sorry. There is a power supply module in the tower itself. That tends to be my preferred options. Tends to be. They'll have to see, are the ASL linear chips in the right places? Mine is inertial dampers are offline. Either way, I'd run a level 3 diagnostic. Thank you. No, I'm fairly certain the issue is the pin panel. thing right down the bottom corner of the motherboard. And yep, basically that's number 17 if I remember correctly. Yep, 20.5 pin system. Yeah, I think I know what I have introduced wrong. Yeah, I'll fix that. That's easy enough to fix. Yeah. Judging from memory, what I've done is on 24 pins, I've managed to get the positive and a negative on the power supply the wrong way round. Because if you read it this way round, it looks like it goes that way round. But if you read it this way round, it looks like it goes that way round. And I'm presuming I must have read it at the wrong angle because I'm going from memory. Oh well. It's currently on a CPU instead of the GPU. This is running still on the laptop. Still on laptop. This is not. This is the final cables for this didn't arrive till tonight. It's also possible the stupid power switch is broken. I'm going to blame myself before I blame the power switch. I will get everything out and I will reconfigure it. If you want to, let's see. If I use this, yeah, and I move those to there quickly, and then I get this across. Sorry about the bright light. Basically, if I can move this to here, you can see right here there are some interesting little pins. And basically, I've got them in the wrong place by one. Which are going to be fun to take out. But not impossible. Well, that one actually came off rather too easily. And there we go. They're all out now. So. Life happens. I'm actually going to live stick them back on because let's see if I can't get this working. If I'm right, this will be the bigger. This will be a nice big oh frig moment because yes, it meant I was an idiot and I got my things wrong round the wrong way. So that's power switch, and on this power switch, ATX power switch. Let's put in the power switch first. Should go there. That is correct. Right then. Then, where else are we going to go? We're going to reset power switch. This is the way you will get to see the problem with doing this with fat fingers. This is where it's useful when I have my little cousin around, because they have very nimble little fingers. And very nimble little fingers are good. Hello. Right. And HDD lead. Plus minus. Should go there. That's all okay. And you two. Right then, you are power LED and power LED, negative and plus, play LED. Yeah, that's on, that's on. Well, theoretically I've got that, hang on. Theoretically that's all now back correctly, he says. And theoretically, that should now work. If I've got it right, done the right way round. I think this is going to be more fun for discussions later. Yeah, it is. Oh, well, at least I know what the problem is. It's making sure cables are the right way around. Take it that small-handed person is watching. Yes, they are. Let's take it from on. If the British get 4 Illustrious and 2 Implacables by the end of 1942, what are chances that the Audacious come to line 1944 when the Implacables did historically? That's more than likely. Might even come on earlier. Hey, welcome to the good for the rescue dog squad. She is more than likely laughing at me, but she will probably come and help at some point if I continue to have trouble with it. And yes, if I remember correctly, the next book after Sea Power and Victory was this one, Battleship Sailors. This is a history of the fighting career of HMS Warspite, and it has this lovely thing from the interwar years in it. On the Sunday morning, the BBC bulletin, received on lower deck radios, gave details of naval reductions, quoting an Admiralty Fleet order published yesterday. And Sunday newspapers brought on board ships by returning men from church services ashore gave accounts of the pay cuts. The radio reports and newspaper accounts, some exaggerated or containing unwarranted claims, only fueled the growing groundswell of resentment and the air of suspicion to the lower deck. These men of the Atlantic Fleet had still not been officially informed of the scale of the cuts. On Sunday evening, the brooding resentment took tangible form with serious disturbances ashore. The crew of Warspite were to become involved in both its instigation and its suppression. It's important of the troubles to come that they were to divide loyalty of both ships and men over the next few days. At noon on Sunday the 12th of September, Warspite's Master-at-Arms reported a rumour of a planned mass meeting ashore that evening to his commanding officer, Captain Baldwin Wake. It was rumoured that the Devonport contingent of Rodney, Adventure and Norfolk, together with Hood, were heavily involved. As Warspite had the guard duties for that day, the officer in charge of the evening ashore patrol was warned of possible trouble. The early evening ashore was quiet, but as canteen filled up with atmosphere, it became more belligerent and unruly, and glass and chairs were thrown as men vented their anger. Argument and speech-making against the pay cuts gradually became more focused into a plan for concerted action to strike. They refused to man the ships. A further meeting was loosely planned for the Monday, to enable the participation of the other half of the ship's crews presently on duty. So Tuesday morning seemed to be the target time for the strike action, when the main units of the fleet were due to leave harbour on exercise. Prominent among the agitators, and later named as the ringleader, was able seaman Leonard Wincott of HMS Norfolk. After a bit of argy-bargy, the shore patrol broke up the meeting relatively easy. Although the officer in charge had taken the precaution of sending a request for reinforcements back to Warspite, by the time the commander, another officer, and a duty patrol as a party of seamen and marines arrived, the trouble seemed to have been quietened down. Warspite's officers did have identified 2 or 3 of their own crew who had taken a prominent role in disturbance, or canteen brawl as later described. The canteen was closed for the night, and the men returned to their ships in an orderly manner. Apart from the report of Warspite's Master-at-Arms, the fleet's senior officers and ship's captains apparently had no apprehension or appreciation or prior warning of the likelihood of serious trouble over the week cuts. Though they cannot have been completely insensitive to the growing air of resentment on their ships, and indeed some had privately warned senior officers of their concern at the likely impact on cuts and lower deck morale, the threat of possible strike action caught them completely off guard. It was confirmation of a growing breakdown in the traditional relationships between senior officers and their men, which had been taking place since the end of the First World War. The social and economic fabric of the Navy, like the other country, was changing. Most long-serving senior NTOs and the more junior officers, themselves facing heavy financial cutbacks, were sympathetic to their men. In a letter home, Midshipman Fox summarised the weekend disturbances in the contacts and the views of most of his fellow officers in daily contact with the men. The cuts in naval pay have been announced. In the evening, at the canteen ashore, there was trouble. The captain of the Hood and our commander landed with an extra large patrol to keep order. The cuts which hit men the hardest are those of the able seamen who entered service before 1925. Their pay has been reduced from 4 shillings, 20p, to 3 shillings, 15p a day. All ranks have had cuts, but they have been worked out thoroughly, with the result that there is inequality and hardships. Of course, everybody's sympathies are with men, except over this behaviour. A lot had entered the Navy on the promise that their pay would not be reduced. An able seaman only got 4 shillings a day, and a very small marriage allowance. An AB with maybe 40 and father of several children. So if only 3 shillings a day, it means nearly starvation. I don't think you can honestly blame a man for losing his head under circumstances. It is a 25% pay cut, and no hope of a restoration is held out. Monday began with no obvious continuation of previous night's troubles. Warspite, flying the flag of Rear Admiral French, commander of the 2nd Battle Squadron, sailed without incident in company of her sister ship Malaya for sub-caliber firing exercise in Murray Firth. Everything appeared normal in the remaining ships. Mid-morning, Rear Admiral Tompkinson sent a message to his captains of the Atlantic fleet ships that the pay cuts were to be explained without delay as soon as copies of the official Admiralty fleet order, now being hurriedly duplicated, were received on board. Hoping that things would blow over, he also sent a signal to the Admiralty. There was slight disturbance in the Royal Navy canteen in Vigorden yesterday, Sunday evening, caused by one or two ratings endeavouring to address those present on the subject of reduction in pay. I attach no importance to the incident from a general disciplinary point of view, but it's possible it may be reported in exaggerated form in the press. The matter is still being investigated. Always fun. That's, of course, the preview to the Vigorden Mutiny, and it's a good book. Next book on the ones which I was going to do is Fisher's Face. Now, Fisher's Face is an interesting one put together by Jan Morris. Jan Morris. Has the insight such as this. Fisher greatly prized the esteemed lower deck. On Christmas Day 1859, he reported to pleasure to Mams about the 30 bluejackets had been doing nothing else but hugging me and wanting me to take their grog. I'd love to give them 24 all round, the brutes. And when in 1902 he left the Mediterranean at the end of his term as Commander-in-Chief, he emerged from a farewell dinner to the deck of his flagship to be greeted by the entire ship's company with their own version of Goodbye Dolly Gray, the American hit song of the day. Goodbye, Jackie, we must leave you. Can't you hear their strong young voices still and see the mist in their admiral's eye? Like so many of Fisher's attitude, his care for the seaman was not all disinterested. I know the British sailor to be the very core. He has been my study all my life, and I have a deep affection for him. He also recognised, though, that being the seaman's friend would pay professional dividends. The purchase of the Nelson Touch, after all, was to win battles. Jack was a modernist, and he realised that the social structure of the Royal Navy, like the hierarchy of England itself, was outdated. The training, ratings and warrant officers were entreated as being of a lower order. The officers were drawn overwhelmingly from the gentry classes, meaning, so Fisher loved to fulminate, that they represented a mere 1/40th of the population. Snobbery was a curse of the service. Buggins is the first cousin of the Duke of Devonshire and can't be passed over. He's an ass, but he must have his turn. Also, the executive officers, concerned with navigation, tactics and gunnery, were absurdly contemptuous of the engineers, whom they regarded as mere mechanicals. Deck officers, according to Fisher, were liable to say to engineers, "My ma will never ask your ma to tea." And if the officers of the warship were invited to a function ashore, it was tacitly understood that engineers were excluded. Fisher despised these antiquated prejudices and grew ever more impatient with them, immensely gilded the structure of the English society done lay them. Mr. Democracy is not going to stand for it. One of his earliest exempt letters make fun of an Oxford swell encountered in Hong Kong. You belong to the Navy, really? And half a century later, he was still complaining about the strain of stubbornness that pervades the feudal relics of the British race. British social system was not just unfair, but actually ungodly. Fisher remembered seeing the Chartist riots of 1848 when he was a child in London, being horrified even then at the brutal behaviour of the police. 60 years later, he and Kitty used to entertain slum children from London at their home in Norfolk. Just imagine some of these children, 12 years old, who have never seen a green field in their lives before. It's awful. Fisher loved to quote the verse, "Sworn to no party, of no sect am I can't be silent, and I will not lie." But the older he got, the more his instincts leaned to the left, and in the end he was often accused of rank socialism. It's a good book. But it's been out of publication for a while, so it's be a second-hand copy you probably find. It's an introduction to the fighting career of HMS Warspite as recalled by her men. So, and what would change if Vasco da Gama or his equivalent met Zheng He and his fleet on the west coast of Africa? Well, Zheng He was centuries before, so if they somehow met each other, it would either be a very much later Chinese fleet or a very much earlier Portuguese fleet, which would have been interesting. Probably not fighting, probably discussions of some kind. As both Wright investigating. It would be interesting. Nice second. Would I be right in thinking USA developed 16 shells more than due to running out of service? World War II's 16 shells? it was more a case of needing to build new ones because the old ones could only be maintained for so long. Um, I think the earlier discussion and the point that brought up the CIA being shut down, as he put it, I said change its name and rebranded, was if you had a scenario whereby it was openly known that they had attacked a British submarine. And the reason is it would be rebranded, not shut down, rebranded is quite simple. If they didn't, then it would be basically the government saying we agree and support their actions in attacking an allied submarine. And that would cause so much trouble with NATO, etc. in the Cold War, you don't want to go there. Basically, the entire system of forward defense and everything that America built relied on allies. If you have your elements and if you say, well, actually alliances don't mean anything to me, I'll still attack you if I want to, then suddenly no one wants to be your friend. Because what's the point? It's going to some sort of, you'll be friends with America, da-da-da-da-da. But in return, you need some sort of repartee in terms of we won't attack you, you won't attack us, and we'll support each other in wartime. Is an alliance. If they attacked if CIA attacked a Royal Navy submarine, and it wasn't considered, let's put it this way, if they attack it and they didn't say, oh, sorry, this was a complete accident, we apologize unreservedly, here we'll prosecute all these people because they didn't follow through the policies which were in place to prevent such an accident, all those sort of things, they would be in massive trouble. So anyway, what would change if Dranga sails came into use in Northern Europe a century or two earlier? Probably you'd have some longer range sailing a century or two earlier, but not much. On May 17th, 1958, a CIA B-26 attacked a Royal Navy submarine. Luckily, the pilot missed. Yeah. And because he missed, it could all be put off to one side. If he'd actually hit and sunk the sub, then that would have been an issue. That's what we're sort of dealing with. It's the issue that it creates. Mm-hmm. Anna, how seriously did the discriminator Suez crisis damage US-UK relations? It changed UK-US relations. It's where the phrase "a special partnership," special friendship, special relationship comes from. And it was basically Britain sought to recast itself rather from being, in their minds, as they'd been prior to World War II, as some sort of partnership of equals, to being a partnership of a special friendship. So it didn't have to be a partnership of equals, and Britain would punch above its weight, sort of thing. But it gets interesting. So anyway, would Zheng He meeting with earlier Portuguese sailors change history? What with Zheng He going to Europe? Zheng He might go to Europe. Might go to Europe. It would be interesting as to what would happen with the size of Zheng He's fleet. That we do know some of their ships managed to make it around the Cape of Good Hope. They might go all the way into the Mediterranean, into. It might create a lot of interesting things. Let's put it this way. The trouble is, if it's that period, it might also create a holy war. Lead up to one side.
That's what the claim was he believed that the submarine was some mythical submarine smuggling supplies to Indonesian terrorists. So would be smuggling stuff in a submarine in the 1950s and late 1950s. In a nicest way, no one has the subs around to do the smuggling. It's a case of basically someone making a mistake. A lot of mistakes. A lot of mistakes went into doing that, and it would have just been made if they'd actually hit a target. It's one of those scenarios. It's just terrible all around. Right then. The Forgotten Dead. Now, this book has an interesting chapter in it called How to Buy a Tank. I rang my bank manager and asked for $50 to buy a tank. Having decided I was going to buy the tank, I had to think what was the first step along the road. Fascinating, really, because I did not know where to start. How did I said, and that they were totally flabbergasted. 30th April, October 1973, I had a short note back from them recommending that a good place to start might be the American Embassy in London. They also enclosed a lengthy document from the Ministry of Transport entitled Notes for Intended Salvos. And this stated, as I suspected, all wrecks do belong to someone, and the first thing one had to do was make every effort to trace the owner. The document went on, under Section 518 of the Merchant Shipping Act, 1894, and Section 72 of the Merchant Shipping Act, 1906, any wreck found or undertaken in possession of and landed in the United Kingdom, whether recovered from within or outside the territorial limits, must be reported to the receiver of the wrecks at the nearest customs house. If the salvor is neither the owner nor operating by agreement with the underwriter or owner, such wreck must be delivered to the receiver of the district. If no claim to ownership is established, the receiver will retain it for 1 year, and at the expiry of that time, when it becomes vested in the Crown, sell it and make payment of salvage from the proceeds. In the circumstances mentioned in Section 522 of the Merchant Shipping Act, 1894, the receiver has the power to sell wrecks in his custody at any time. In other words, if I brought a tank ashore without owning it, I was going to be in for a hard time. Clearly, I had to buy the tank before I brought it ashore, but knowing that got me no nearer to finding out how I should buy it. I contacted the American Embassy in London. To be precise, I telephoned the embassy. Most of my dealings were done on the telephone. Sensible replies were a little bit sparse in coming, and I had to keep persisting then, but eventually I got a response from the embassy. Not that it seemed to move things forward very far forward. US Army Assistant Military Attaché, Major James E. Leonard, wrote that he was at a loss as to where to direct me to obtain ownership. He did say that he thought that I should first contact my local authority and possibly the Department of Environment, since he was unaware of the British legal position as far as my claim was concerned. He also passed me on again. This time it was to the American Defense Supply Agency in Alexandria, Virginia, which was the office that controlled the disposal of US government military property. This seemed to be just another link in the chain of red tape, but I telephoned the Defense Supply Agency, and another round of letters and phone calls was underway. Defense Supply Agency was in touch with the Department of the Army to ascertain, as they put it, the legal status of the tank. One particular reply which made me laugh was sent in February 1974. The DSA said they regretted they could not consider the tank abandoned. This was a Sherman tank that had been down there under 60 feet of water in the English Channel for more than 30 years, and they could not consider it abandoned. What the latter did say, with some understatement, was that although the tank could not be ever considered abandoned, it had been determined that their demilitarization requirements had been adequately covered by its immersion in salt water for 31 years. I do not think they really knew what to do. They passed me on as well. They asked me to write to the Defense Property Disposal Service in European region in Wiesbaden, west of Germany. This was the office which was dealing with the sale of military equipment in Europe, and which they said might be able to pass title of the tank to me by sale. It sounded to me as though they might be able to tell me the tank, so I got on telephone to Wiesbaden, and having been passed around several departments, I eventually made contact with Miss Sally Nagata, who was to prove very helpful. I spoke to Miss Nagata on the telephone, and I wrote to her. I told her about the tank, and what I wanted, and she was very happy and pleasant and helpful. By April, she was able to write back saying that a draft agreement had been prepared for me to obtain ownership title, although she was waiting for approval from headquarters to enable the agreement to be executed. In the meantime, they wanted to know what monetary amount I would offer for the tank. This was progress. In effect, she was saying I could have the tank, but we would have to agree what price I'd pay for it. I suggested £1, but she did not agree with that at all. She said that they would need to cover their administrative costs in drawing up the agreement, which they put at $50, so we agreed on the price of $50. This whole thing took a long time, a lot of telephone calls, a lot of pestering. I reckon they thought maybe if they left me alone for a while, I might go away. But of course, I had no intention of doing so, so it was the telephone and telephone and telephone, just pressing them all the time for response. In my mind, it was nothing but sheer determination that there was a tank out there, and I wanted it for a memorial to those men. There was no way I was going to give up, and any red tape they put in front of me, as far as I'm concerned, was to be cut with a pair of scissors. The pair of scissors in this case was me and my telephone. Eventually, in July 1974, a draft agreement arrived, together with a contract of sale and a request for $50. The sale contract spoke of a Sherman tank, otherwise identified by either party, which I believed to be off the coast of Devon. I was buying hard to believe. One was the position regarding any human remains. If there were any in the tank, in the agreement, they said that in consideration of the $50 US would pass title over to me, provided that if I should discover any human remains in the said object, I'd immediately notify the US Army military system in Frankfurt and permit the US system to take custody of the remains. The contract further provided that if the said system determined that in no interest in remains, the said remains should be returned to the custody of Small, which will accept custody Small, and Small will accept custody of remains with the right to further disposition. I had to say that I very much hoped no such remains were ever going to be found, let alone returned to me. Even in the annals of red tape, that does seem to be a little macabre, to say the least. They went on to say that it would have become demilitarized anyway. That seemed a blinding glimpse of the obvious. Another clause, a typical legalese, specifies that if I ultimately determined that the object did not exist, or if I determined that it does not exist, but the US did not have to, or never had any right or time or title in the precisely described object, nevertheless the US would be entitled to retain the monies heretofore forwarded and payable by Small. So anyway, I've kept the $50, whatever. But I think probably the most amazing part of the agreement is this section. Whereas the US has no information concerning the existence and location of the tank other than Small's letter of 14th December 1973, hereafter attached hereto and made a part of the attachment as attachment A, the US has no knowledge that it has or ever had any right or title to said object, as described by Small in said letter, but is willing to transfer to Small any right or title, if any, if it had ever had, in consideration of payment of $50 by Small to US, providing the Small should discover human remains that this agreement is into, and by the United States hereinafter, the US and Kenneth Small hereinafter Small, the Cove House, Torcross, South Devon, England, whereas Small believes that a Sherman tank otherwise identified by either party lies in 60 feet of water located at a point approximately 1 mile due northeast of the Cove House of the coast of South Devon, England, and that it may have once been property of the Military Department of the United States. Fun times. It's a good, interesting book. Again, finding a copy is going to be interesting, but it's The Forgotten Dead by Ken Small. It's a good read. Interesting read. I didn't put Crusader Castles in. This was another book I found on my trip. Crusader Castles. That's a good one as well. Hopefully the circles have stopped now. They have according to my phone, which I have to say I'm using my phone to try and keep track of it. Nice hearing. Why did the Marine Nationale not get their Western Lynx has 2 FN and has 4 FN upgraded as HMA 8 standards like the RN did? Because they decided they didn't want to. Literally, they decided it wasn't necessary for their needs. They were doing other things with other aircraft. The phone stream, I had to say, is going through the Wi-Fi, and I'm using that to watch fuel. This is going through hardwire cable. That's fun.
I'm going to have to troubleshoot that for a while. Then I have some magazines, which I was going to sort of basically just show you all because I'm not going to get them out their bags, so I want to get them properly looked after and restored to an extent before I start handling them with my fingers. As you can see, they're all wrapped up in plastic because I picked them up. We have east of Suez, east of Malta, west of Suez, which is all about the Mediterranean Fleet. Then we have Coastal Command and the Atlantic Bridge. All cool ones. All very cool and all double wrapped in plastic to protect them. Ooh. Sorry for going silent for a second. Just checking out the editing's working. Apologies. Sometimes I forget. I get absorbed in fixing a little problem, and I realise then I've forgotten. I've not stopped being talking for a second. Apologies. Let's get back to the questions. That should be edited and should be fine now. Ooh. Who had Forgotten Dead? Is it about Saving Sands? Forgotten Dead is all about the story of the truth about the American serviceman that died in 1946 serviceman who died in 1944. And yeah, it's Sapping Sands. It's a good book. I don't think the phone's causing much of an issue. Yeah, but our Wi-Fi is able of dealing with a little bit. Our internet is theoretically supposed to deal with quite a lot more, and the phone wasn't running over the Wi-Fi. Well, I thought it was running over Wi-Fi, but it turned out it had to turn off the Wi-Fi connection, so it was running over its own 5G. Nice to hear from 6831. That's not really my area. Nicest way. A licensed version of the SA 330E Puma, only to give the plans to South Africa for their Atlas Oryx to be built. That's a kind of in-depth question for me. That's a topic I could go away and research and give an answer on, but it's not one I can answer off the top of my head. That's a bit involved. And basically, I was running that to try and check what the issues were on this. But we'll see. As I said, this will be up and running. This one's got lights working, so that means power's getting into it, which is good. And that means power's getting into it at all the points. We've got light on the little BIOS button, which is good at the back. So that light's on. Everything's lighting up and everything's working, but the power button's not turning on. If it does turn out to be a broken power button, not me, I will be both annoyed and really, really happy. We'll leave that to one side. Last year, what ship designs were better off not being built? HMS Captain? Oh, there are so. You learn everything, even from the terrible ships. You learn something. Some of the monitors that the US Navy built during the Civil War were highly interesting, especially their ocean-going monitors. There are issues. Why did Argentina think the British were ever going to sell an implacable class carrier to them? Because everyone's able to have dreams. And the British might have sold one to them. If they want, the nicest way for the British, they sell them a light fleet carrier. They want an implacable class, that's great. You sell Argentines an implacable, you can guarantee you're selling the Brazilians the other one. Get one sale, guarantee a second. It's a brilliant deal. What mating would a 3-mast ship of, say, Aegis sail ship with 6 waterline cannon ports and one with 2-mast Aegis? 2-mast Aegis with 9 with main deck gun ports on each side be? Well, if it's got 12 guns and 12 pierce for 12 and one's pierce for 18, they're both brigs of types. You might call one a yacht. It's going to depend on the hull shape. But they're going to be unrated. What was the oldest ship that was still in combat? Victory as a platform as an AA platform in World War II? Possibly, but I'm not really sure we'd call that a ship in combat, even at that point. Possibly some of the older capital ships in World War One, World War Two, from World War One. They're actually in combat. There's a few other vessels which are interesting. There's a fair number of depot ships which are fairly old, wandering around. Sorry, 681. How likely is it that had the Argentinian Navy bought 4 Leander frigates, 2-ton coastliners, 2 orders from the British Navy? They'd have been used against the RN in 1982. Well, why do you have them if you're not going to use them? The odds are they still end up with a cruiser sunk, and if they still...
If they have all those vessels in service, do they manage to keep Belgrano in service? That's an interesting question. In which case, the vessel sunk might have been the Vincente de Miel. Because it would have been one of their major assets to make sure the Navy goes back home. Because I think that warships in Black Sea and Baltic from major sail or all would be fairly long-lived. They do tend to be fairly long-lived. We haven't really done as much search on the seabed as we might necessarily like to do, because we might find things down there. But there again, those waters are also being fairly heavily fished, which could well have destroyed quite a lot of stuff down there. But you never know. What chance did the British have of getting the Lions, even if King George V class and Illustrious came online as planned? You're basically saying there's no break in capital ship construction. It all depends on how soon when the British hear about Yamato. Because, let's put it this way, the only times that the big pickup in building you have of the Lions is when they hear about Yamato and they think that, first of all, they think that he's going to have 17-inch guns. When they realize it's 18-inch, then there's a real, ooh. So if they have built already the King George V, etc., and they've got the Lions further along with construction, they might well finish off one of them. What about the Imperial Russian Navy submarine tender that's still active service and dispatched to salvage stuff from Moscow? I'm not sure I consider that an active warship. That's a tender. Let's go front. The Argentine government go to the US to modernize their VIIA dreadnought battleships in the 1930s. What do they do? In the 1930s, probably get a load of 5-inch 38s fitted. Maybe 5-inch 25s, but probably 5-inch 38s. Yeah, late enough then. If it can be done late enough, they get the 5-inch 38. Probably don't give them radar because I doubt the US would give them that. But yeah, they probably get all the latest optical sensors. Basically, upgraded secondary armament. Probably some improvements to power and engines. They don't have the money to add on more fuel or more armor, so they probably use the weight save for those secondary weapons and armaments. And some reorganization of the ship probably is going to create top weight issues. They'll manage it. Right. So the US is working on new 16-inch munitions in the 1980s, and the World War of Vanguards kept the British would be doing the same, wouldn't they? Probably. South Americans are all looking to modernize dreadnoughts after World War II. What would they get? That's an interesting question. Because I think probably if they're going to buy anything, it's either KGVs off the British or I'm going to be done even more than ever. Hopefully the Circle of Doom has gone. Then right. I'm going to say thank you to everyone. I go away and fix this computer. Thank you. Take care.
I don't know. Thank you very much, everyone, for your help. Sorry it's got ended like this, but yeah. I think the moment it's seen this now, it's just going, yeah, this has got to be it. I don't want to do this anymore. Thank you very much for your help, and take care, and apologies. Bye. Let's go to this.